does spiritual influence differ from karmic influence?
Well, they're the same, but yet they're different. So, when we're talking about karma, we're talking about cause and effect at a level that may seem very obvious to people. So, let's say physically obvious in some cases. So, and then the spiritual means abstract in a certain way, non-material, non-physical. That means well, there's a bit of spookiness implied there. Something could happen, no one can figure it out. No one knows how this thing happened, how this thing moved from there to there without touching it, let's say. So, in other words, spirit implies mystery, but it's also the source of everything. Behind everything, there's this force. You can call it the life force, force of prana, psychic force. And some would believe that that's what's running and enabling everything to be what they are, high or low, this way or that way. That without this spirit or this life force, not much gets done, if anything. So, now, it's not that it's good or bad, it just is what it is. So it's part of the riddle of the universe. And the spirit can do wonderful, marvelous things and can help a person get from this point to the next point without them knowing how they got there. We can say, well, that's because it's their mind. No, spirit is more than the mind. Okay. If spirit had a need for it, it could lift you up and levitate you. So, and just as easily put you down. See? But it has its own let's say, operandi, its own mode of operation. See? So spirit sometimes shows up in the miraculous, see? For a purpose, not just to entertain anybody, but sometimes it has to show up a certain way. And strange things happen when under the influence of the spirit. And so then it's the spirit that moves the karma and rearranges the karma if it's destined to and found to be necessary. And so this is part of the, let's say, understanding we have that there is that which we can't understand, which is not intended to be mystery, but it is showing up as a miraculous, like extraordinary, profound happening, and sometimes for the better. See? And so spirit doesn't operate by our laws or the material laws. That's important to keep in mind. Everything else is subject to physical, psychic karma based upon Earth forces, planetary forces. And they're pretty organized and orderly and predictable to a certain degree. And when the presence of spirit gets involved in that, then anything can happen. Anything usually good when we're talking about spirit. We're not talking about evil, we're talking about the goodness of spirit happening. So healing things can happen. Fixing things can happen. And we have the presence of the good. With this kind of Holy Spirit, as they call it. I mean, it's for the sake of good. So, healing people, bringing them peace, and so on and so forth.
So then, when someone says something like, I'm just going to give it to Spirit, or leave it to Spirit, that's like saying...
You're getting out of the way. Because that's all it means. I'm going to leave it to Spirit. It means I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to push it. All right. So you kind of like fly automatic. You take your hands off the wheel, so to speak, the steering, whatever, right? And you leave it because it's not like you're doing nothing. Because if you're doing nothing, that's all you got. But if you're in the process of doing something and you have this opportunity to say, no, this I'm going to leave to Spirit because it involves other forces that are beyond your control. That can't do anything about this. This thing is going where it's going. Leave it up to chance or spirit, which is something that is more positive. I'm going to leave this up to spirit. Spirit knows better. See, I've been trying and it's not happening, but I see that spirit is involved in it. So you have to make a judgment about that, a recognition that this thing is actually out of your hands, but it's also in your hands, but it's also out of your hands. Right. Like flying at night in bad weather. It's out of your hands, but it's in your hands. The results you have to leave up to spirit. You do the best you can, but you got things blowing against you from underneath, from on top, and your aircraft is rotating and going sideways and whatever because of the forces, right? You're in a storm. And that's a good example. What do? You go with the flow. You hope for the best. Because you know you can make it, but you don't know that you will make it.